Ready for the VP to spring to life? My door panel is rattling.
How do you like the new seatbelts?
Much better. They're OE.
This thing sounds pretty good.
All right, off to find like handling course. Okay, are you ready?
I've got my timer. I'm going to hit it when you hit the first clod.
Oh, this is tight.
Yeah.
Ready?
Oh, you hit a quad. You hit another quad. Come on, Forever. How you hit them all?
I hit every clod.
How did you do that?
Man, I hit every clod. Do you want to set them up the same way and try it again?
Yeah, let me get some new rocks to replace the ones you destroyed. Forever, did you notice the genius of rocks?
Yeah, but they disintegrate.
I don't know why they don't use rocks for regular autocross. They use the stupid cones.
Yeah, and then you drag the cones all the way under the car
Yeah,
for
they
a
get
mile.
stuck.
That would never happen with a dirt clod. What was my time?
Oh, man, I forgot to time you. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I was a little excited.
Well, the clods are way too close together for like a normal slalom. The thing is, I'm thinking that's okay because it's making me put much more steering angle into it, so it's throwing the car more. The downside is the car's going slower, so that inertia isn't throwing the car quite as much. But I think it's gonna give us a good test AB on our suspension change. What I'm worried about is that we're not gonna make it actually faster though, but I'm sure we will make the thing turn in better and definitely have less body roll with this stuff right here. So in the past, I've run the full Hotchkiss Performance kit and loved it, but this is probably about half the price. Basically, we're gonna rebuild the front suspension with regular old parts, although I did go all out and get the Moog instead of the off-brand stuff. We are gonna replace the upper control arms with polyurethane bushings instead of rubber because they have less deflection. Next up, we're gonna install beefier torsion bars. The torsion bar is the spring in one of these Mopars. The larger diameter, the higher the rate. The stock diameter on this thing is 0.880 and the ones we're putting in are 0.980. Next up, generic sway bars, front and rear. These I really like. QA1 replacement strut rods. These are really cool. And finally, I didn't go full cheap on the shocks. They're QA1, which is really good, but they are the single adjustable instead of the double adjustable. Steve's gonna start pushing the upper control arm bushings in, so I'm gonna start assembling the front suspension. Look at the difference here between the original strut rod and this new one. They eliminate this bushing right here. See, this bushing is captured in the front of the K-member of the car, and it goes into the control arm like this. It's trying to prevent the control arm from moving fore and aft like this, but those rubber bushings will allow some of that. It also needs to allow the control arm to move up and down like this, which it does, but with bind. And so the QA1 deal has a Heim joint on this end so that it can move much more freely up and down with no bind, but it can't move fore and aft. What you want to do is get it hanging in here loosely, and then the control arm and the strut rod have to go in kind of at the same time at two different angles, which is sometimes a little tricky, like that. Okay, new torsion bar. Believe it or not, there are right and left torsion bars. If you look at the very end of it, it actually has an L on the part number. So all I'm gonna do is go under there and slide this back through there, put the boot on, and then slide it into the hex in the lower control arm. Steve?
Yes.
Can you crawl onto the back and smack the end of the torsion bar while I line up this hex? There you go. Boom, home. In. I hit one. Out.
604.
Wow. We
faster.
made it way better. Ready?
Yep.
In. Out.
585.
Man, this is great.
I know.
In. Out.
602.
Pretty consistent.
Yeah.
In. Out.
555.
It's a full second quicker. Ouch. we're ready to pull this thing.
It's gonna be a heavy one.
Yeah.
A fully dressed 360 with transmission.
Don't smash that grill.
Okay, it's out, lower it some. Careful, that's our engine and transmission. Here's the 360 engine and 727 transmission that came out of our donor truck. This is going to go into our off-road Challenger, but not before we make some changes. Let's start at the bottom and work our way around and to the top. First of all, the starter motor, I want to change that to a later model mini starter. It turns the engine over faster and it's lighter, more compact, just better all around. The oil pan here is a rear sump. That's truck only. The passenger car takes a center sump, so that definitely has to change. The motor mount brackets, again, truck parts, has to be changed for car. Up here, we've got a whole bunch of accessories. We don't need most of this stuff. The smog pump, that's gonna go. The air conditioning compressor, we'll say goodbye to that. I'm not sure if the power steering pump will even work, but this is all gonna have to be figured out. Right here, we've got the exhaust manifolds. We're gonna take those off, we're running headers. Now moving to the top, the intake manifold's coming off. We're going back with our tunnel ramp, so that's gonna be cool. And finally, this broken electronic ignition distributor is gonna go, and we're just gonna put points in it because it's real simple and will work just fine on this engine.
Go left a bit. I can't even believe it's been 2 years since we took this thing apart. So we've lowered our expectations. There's not gonna be any big radical engine. There's gonna be this bone stock 360, and that's gonna happen fast. I'm gonna pull the radiator out. Steve's gonna get this thing on jacks. Then we're gonna get the transmission out of here. And then this one should, as we say, right in. Steve's gonna show you how we need to plug off these factory air injection holes under the exhaust manifolds. What's up with that, Dulcich? When did they start doing that?
Sometime in the 80s.
Smog
the problem
stuff.
is, if you put headers on, or early manifolds, they're gonna leak air or exhaust out these air injection ports. You can tap them and put a little pipe plug in there, but it's easier just to get a piece of welding rod and ramrod it in.
Dulcich wanted to assign me the cushy work. There's always like a divisional labeler around here where he loves making linkage, so he's making the transmission shift linkage, and he let me make the engine run. And so I was gonna go put a points distributor in this thing because the distributor that came out of it was electronic ignition, but remember how wobbly and destroyed the shaft was in the thing? Well, we had this points distributor sitting around. But I thought to myself, hey, we might as well upgrade. We might as well put new points in this thing. But, wait for it. This is going to be a new segment called the Freiberger Aftermarket Rant. This is ridiculous. Bought brand new set of points, and they are the correct part number, correct application. They look just like the ones that came out, but watch this. They are fully adjusted and not even touching the distributor cam. They do not open and close. The rubbing block is made too small. This, I am getting sick and tired of. The aftermarket cannot make parts for old cars anymore. And I find more and more and more, you buy stuff like this that just plain does not work. And the thing is, what is this? Like a $3 or $4 set of points? Nobody's gonna bother to return it. They're just gonna get irate and go like this. And so nobody's ever going to know that it's the wrong thing. So my tip to you would be return stuff when it doesn't work. It's the only way the aftermarket is gonna react and realize that they're losing money by making parts that don't fit. Meanwhile, I'll be here restoring my old set of points and forcing them to function perfectly. All right, I just agreed to give Dulcich the jump because I've got the blown 383 small block in my Jeep and he's got the junk used 360.
With no thermoquad.
And keep in mind, I'm in two-wheel drive. I do not have the 4x4 advantage.
Yeah, that's like trying to race you with one arm tied behind my back.
It's true. I have no smack talk. I mean, my blown Jeep lost to a bone stock flat fender with a V6 in it. I got nothing to say, just action. I legitimately want to drive this thing like a new car. And so to do that, I've put together a suspension which is really my own concoction. Remember, what I'm looking for here is not ultimate handling. I am looking for daily drivability, so I want the thing quiet. I don't want to hear bushings squeak. I don't particularly need the thing to handle killer, but I need it to be good enough. And so what I did is I went to the Global West suspension page and sort of looked through their recommendations and then backed them down into my own sort of cheaper and softer riding version. Here's where it starts. I'm gonna put on some Scott Drake coil springs. This is a reproduction company. They make a bunch of stuff for Fords. This is a 1-inch drop spring. I'm using it in conjunction with a stock thin rubber upper spring seat. I wanted them in there for squeak proofing and for a softer ride. The other thing I'm gonna do is replace the strut rods in the thing because I'm concerned that there might be bent in the car right now. I am going to use rubber bushings at the front of the strut rod. However, these are Global West high durometer rubber bushings, and so they're a little firmer than what you would find stock, which I find important on these to prevent bump steer because the suspension is honestly really flimsy on these, as you can see by the look of the lower control arm, which is simple stamped metal just like this. Similarly, I got an upper spring seat, which just uses regular old rubber bushings. Now, the one place I deviated from that is in the upper control arm. This is a Global West suspension negative roll upper control arm. If you've seen in the prior episode when we've got the Mustang up in the air, you can see that the tires droop like this. And when they compress, they go like this. In other words, the camber curve on them is the opposite of what you really want. And that camber curve is corrected most of the way by using this Global West upper control arm and relocating the pickup points on it.
Oh yeah, now we're making progress.
Okay, now it's out.
It is?
Yep.
And I'm supporting it.
Here's the story with our center sections. We just removed a 3.0 gear set with 28 spline axles, the smallest, flimsiest axles they ever made for a Ford 9-inch. Now, my new center section is a 370 gear set with a limited slip, and I've got 35 spline axles, which is ridiculous overkill for what we're doing with the Disgustang. I found out the cheapest thing for me to do was to use this complete pig, but then have my buddies at Mosier make some custom axles to make it work. They were able to come up with a bearing that had a thin enough wall thickness that it could accommodate the big axle, but still slip in the end of the axle tube. This isn't something they actually recommend because this is kind of a weak bearing, but it's gonna be fine for what I'm doing here. And there's absolutely no chance I will ever break that. Whoa!
It's in. That's sounding pretty good. Hey, David, I think the X-brace has got to come out.
Okay, this is like a normal debacle for us. The X-brace underneath the car was installed, and then the guy put the mufflers in, and he sort of welded the mufflers in a way that captures the X-brace, so that there's no way to get the X-brace out of the car, which means there's no way to get the drive shaft in the car. So I'm gonna have to cut tabs off of the brace in order to get it out, and then re-engineer it later. Got it. Only had to cut one tab.
Okay, great. Got it.
Okay, now the drive shaft should slide in.
Coming down, Freiberger.
I'm going to install more chassis stiffening. This is going to be a Global West export bar, a strut that connects the shock towers to the firewall and pinches them all together nice and stiffly and great. Then we're going to also add a Monte Carlo bar across from here to there. The point of all of that is to triangulate and stiffen the shock towers into the firewall to keep this whole car from flexing. Looks raced, Dolchek.
Wow, this thing is just made for the open road. Look at the way it cruises with that overdrive.
So far, so good.
I don't know why I'm nervous.
No way.
It's like if you have a brake failure, I'm going right through that windshield.
See, look, this is the scenario.
Yeah.
Chugging in LA traffic. This is where this car is worthless if it overheats or if it's too loud or if it, chugs.
Yeah.
It's way too annoying. Think anyone will notice that we're driving a 69 Mustang in traffic? Oh no, this is LA, no one cares.
Yeah.
Dude, the thing is still not even at 160 degrees.
That's awesome.
Yep.
You got a really good drive package on the accessories, and that fan and radiator are huge.
Yep.